Greetings, fellow humans. Today we are going to be having a conversation with Calum Davidson. You would know him from his YouTube channel, Tetrakan Super Mono Block, which is a great channel where he has pulled apart and done repairs on many Tascam Portastudios and Fostex and most recently a Marantz. And he's kind of putting together this whole library of collection of videos where people forever, from now till forever, as long as the internet exists and civilization exists, can go and look at how to fix their Portastudio. I think he's doing great work. I also really love his original music, and we get into that as well. And you should just go check out his channel and subscribe. Listen to the conversation here with Calum Davidson. Here we are with
Alpha Tester.
yeah, exactly. With Mr. Calum Davidson, aka Tetrakan Super Mono Block. Right?
Yep, it's easy to remember. It's easy to spell.
Where I gotta ask about the name. Where did that name derive, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, I mean, I'm at the moment sort of wondering whether I should shorten it to just Tetrakan, but maybe the channel's been going too long to make that change now. I mean, when I first started that channel, it was called Tinkering with Tascams, and I suppose I was looking to a point where maybe in the future, although I imagine I'm always going to be quite heavy, maybe a 50% bias towards this is how you take these things apart and potentially how you fix them. I might in the future to be doing broader stuff, some of the sort of stuff you do on your channel, some of my own music, not necessarily only using Tascams. And so I just figured, if you think Heinbach, I don't know what his real name is, but
right.
It's he's still, you know what to expect associated with that name. And I just, I mean, I don't know, this will be...
Tetrakan is cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be less of a... I mean, because sometimes, I'll see people reference my videos, and the spelling's
yeah,
completely wrong. And no wonder. So it was not so well thought through. But the origin is I like comic books, and there's a series of comic books by Alexander Jodorowsky, who's my favorite filmmaker. And in that series, Tetrakan Super Monoblock is the supercomputer that creates the video games that everyone in the galaxy is addicted to, that keeps them sort of sedated and from uprising against the Empire. So, yeah, totally relevant, as well as easy to spell.
I mean, I like it. I definitely like the origin story.
You asked.
I did. And yeah, I didn't mean to dive straight into, maybe you should shorten it, but, you mentioned Heinbach, and I was watching something from him recently. That's his mother's maiden name, apparently.
All right.
Yeah. And
okay. Well, I should change my name to Stafford. And now you know how to. Now you know the password to all my bank accounts.
right. Yeah. No, but it's Stafford 1 exclamation point.
Sure. Yeah. No, I've substituted numbers in there, so. The O in Stafford's actually a 0.
Yeah. So.
Oh wait, I meant to think and not say it.
Well, if you want, I'll just edit all that stuff out.
No, it's okay. Leave it in.
Yeah, I'm fully, I'm a privacy advocate, so I'm not putting out anything weird out there. You are based in, at the risk of sounding like an ignorant American, I'm just going to ask, where are you from? I could guess, but I'll probably just sound dumb.
Yeah, I'm Scottish, and I live in Scotland. I live in the Highlands of Scotland in quite a small village, a relatively rural area.
And how do you think this influenced your getting into cassette recorders?
Not much. I mean, it's we've barely got wheels and fire and shit. So the fact that like I'm dealing with something sophisticated, so sophisticated as a cassette recorder is kind of, it's really bucked the probabilities. I mean, I don't know how I got into this. It's kind of random series of events. I mean, I don't have any academic pedigree as a electrical engineer. I don't have any experience as a professional technician. I mean, I've kind of occasionally charged people money to fix stuff like since I learned to do this. But when I was learning to do it, it was just kind of a whimsical thing where serviced units were really expensive at that time. Not so much now. You could pick up things like, a Tascam 244 really cheap. I mean, I was buying them for 40, 50 quid initially. And I found a website, Mike Z Entertainment, MZE, and there was a kind of a visual guide with photographs on how to change rubber belts and idler tires and so on. So I thought I'd take a chance, buy one of those and try and fix it myself. I did. It worked. I was lucky that the first few units that I had really only needed the rubber changed, because it would have been very easy for me to become discouraged early on. But I was lucky that there was this kind of gradual incline of difficulty where I got to kind of go off, watch some videos, read some books, figure out what I was doing a bit better, and slowly ease myself into the water to a point now where some units I'm like pretty familiar with, and I've learned enough from them I can sort of extrapolate from those onto other cassette recorders what's going on.
Yeah. So, what year you were talking about? I'm just curious. When did this start happening for you? When did you, replace your first belt?
I think no more than 6 years ago, maybe 5 years ago.
You've covered a lot of ground in that time. I mean, in case anyone watching, I'm going to do an introduction at the start of this but your channel is full of repairs with many, many types of Tascams, and not even Tascams. You recently were doing one of those Marantz machines. For a client, I believe, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's Andy Pickering. So
right.
Like Andy Pickering's got a channel which is themed in a similar way to yours and mine. Like he does a lot of he records pretty much exclusively with the Marantz PMD 740. He had another kind of a spares one in bits, so he contacted me about servicing it, and I was like, well, full disclosure, I'm not really a service engineer, and I've never worked on one before, but I'll do you a deal. I'll charge you as little as I possibly can in order to be able to film it. Because I mean, basically, what I'm trying to do with the channel is eventually, maybe 10 years time, if you've got a cassette recorder and maybe some other kind of tape machine as well, you can go onto my channel and there's going to be a series of teardowns and also some related videos that give you some sort of direction about how to go about diagnosing and fixing electrical systems and mechanical systems within there. So I'm trying to build up like a reference library basically, and I have been concentrating mainly on Tascam, but yeah, there's quite a lot of Fostics up there now, some Marantz, Aria, there's going to be some Yamaha stuff.
I mean, I think that's one of the greatest things about YouTube. We can it's amazing that you're building that reference catalog. Do you have a Tascam Porta 2 repair? I think you do, right?
I have, well, not published at the time that we're talking. I filmed it. I haven't edited it yet. What's the, we're at the end of June at the moment, aren't we? So like probably sometime in July or August 2021, and those teardown videos will go up. But yeah, I possess one and have taken it apart.
Mm-hmm.
Great unit. I mean, like kind of crazy complicated. I mean, it's really close to Tascam 246. Apart from it would run off batteries if you could still get C cells or D cells or whatever it was that it took. And it's, the two bands, high-low EQ, without the sort of parametric mids. But I mean, I don't think until I took it apart I'd realised just how kind of complex and comprehensive the mixing options are on that unit.
Yeah, I feel really lucky that it was the thing that my dad purchased like a week before I was born. So he still has the receipt from it and everything. And
I mean, that's great to have one owner as well. Because I mean, I think with a lot of these things, there was a point where hard disk recorders. I mean, I had one of those like in the late 90s, and then subsequently digital audio workstations. Everyone was like all about Pro Tools. So a lot of these things have been sitting neglected in attics and garages and for a long time, which is why they require quite a bit of work. But I mean, if you've got one that's basically one owner and being looked after, then that's perfect.
Yeah, very lucky, and he's good with electronics, so he didn't abuse it, and then he was able to fix it up a bit before sending it off to me. Yeah.
I mean, you were saying like, how long have I been doing it? Well, 5 or 6 years. I mean, I've been doing it kind of obsessively within that time. I want to kind of make clear it's not like, an hour every weekend. There were periods where I was like putting 8-10 hours a day into it. There was a period when, I went quite rapidly to making a significant amount of my income. I don't anymore. I now have like a day job, and I try not to depend on what I'm doing with Portastudios for income. But there was a period where I was buying them broken down on eBay, fixing them and selling them on eBay, and that was like half my income. And so I learned a lot from that. So I mean, that's how I've kind of progressed.
Yeah,
so much in a relatively short period of time. But it's not like I go back miles and miles or decades with electronics. It's
no, but that's a great education. What you're just describing, like buying them and fixing them up and selling them. That's obviously where you really cut your teeth on how these things open up and work, and you're able to build this body of work on YouTube. I mean, it's already huge what you've got. I don't know. I don't know what. I don't have an encyclopedic knowledge of all the Portastudios, so I'm sure you know what you're missing. I'm sure there's still a long ways to go, but it seems like a lot to me up there on your channel.
Yeah, well, double-edged sword about my personality is like I kind of want to get this like obsessive like complete knowledge. It would probably be better for my general well-being if I was able to leave it at 3 models that I really liked and just stop there. And then I was saying to someone else recently, I need to kind of stop sharpening axes and start cutting down some trees, because all this like dicking around with trim pots and rubber tires, it kind of gets in the way of doing things like playing guitar and writing songs. But that's part of the reason for the channel is so that at least other people can kind of benefit from this rabbit hole that I've gone down. Because I mean, it's kind of weird that it's fallen to me. Obviously, this Third Island has been doing quite a lot of content along those lines as well. Dennis from Multi-Track Cassette fans had some repair stuff up. But I mean, there must have been guys, from back in the 90s who like worked with these things a lot. And so it was surprising to me, coming into that, whatever it was, like 2015, and there really wasn't anything on YouTube about how to do it. Apart from that Mike Z's site and digging through forums, homerecording.com, tapeheads, that kind of thing. And a lot of the stuff in there is hearsay and badly described. There really wasn't a lot in the way of visual materials for people to learn from. So, I mean, now you've got an amateur doing filling that gap. But,
well, there's two things I see there. I mean, one, it's the people who are from the generation who were knowledgeable of Portastudios might not necessarily be the ones who think, "Oh, I'll start a YouTube channel and document this."
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that would be the thing that I would think from that. Could be right, could be wrong. I don't know, but you're filling a niche. You're filling a gap, and I think you're doing God's work over there.
Nice.
But something you said triggered a question. I'm curious, what are some really common myths that you see across these old forums when it comes to Portastudio recording or analog recording in general? I'm sure you're hip to some crazy myths.
I feel like there's a really good answer here, but I can't remember. Maybe it'll come to me. I mean,
like metal tapes scratch your heads. Metal tapes scratch your heads. I've heard that.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that as well. I mean, I remember like a conversation with you, like in Facebook comments about I wouldn't buy one because that's your 401k, really, isn't it? Like you buy one metal tape. I'm not going to waste something that like cost $120, £80 to test that out. I think the idea is that the little crystals that are glued to the tape that carry the magnetic signal are a harder metal for the metal type tapes. And so that would contribute to lapping. I mean, but I did a video recently just to say I haven't come across lapping on cassette players, and I figure that is because the tension is low, the tape speed's low. I mean, if you've got a professional studio 2-inch tape, 30 inches per second, and it's getting used like 8 hours a day, then yeah, after 10 years, the physical metal outer casing part of those magnetic heads is going to get worn down. I haven't found that, I'm like looking at a lot of machines that are like 40 years old. So people say, are the heads in good condition? It's like, unless they've actually been twisted so that the little electromagnets inside, so the wires break or the little magnetic cores crack, then that's not really an issue. I mean, what are other kind of misconceptions? I mean, I take kind of a dim view on this, like such and such a model sounds better than such and such a model chat. Like, I tend to assume that if there's a objective or subjective preference that you have between this unit and this unit, then it's kind of like one of them's calibrated better. Or there's an article, not an article, well, a video slot that I saw about Kerry King's Marshall JCM 800s, and he's got rows of them, and one of them sounded amazing compared to the others. And when his tech went in and tested all the like capacitors and resistors in it, it was much closer to factory spec than the other ones. So I figure that if you've got like a 246 that sounds rubbish and you've got a 244 that sounds better, it's probably because the 244, the capacitors are that little bit closer.
Yeah.
To the, exactly what's on the schematic and things like that. So, yeah, I mean, I find like a lot of these forums, people are debating about which is the best Portastudio, and it's kind of more like, well, do you need to take it somewhere? In which case, buy a small one. Is it going to mainly sit in one room? Then you can afford to have a larger one. And, and things like having more channels, like you'd have on a Porta 2 or 246, become more important. So I see it more in terms of the interface, which bells and whistles it's got, rather than I think that, Tetrakan sound better than Fostex or so on. I mean, they've all got like roughly the same op amps and stuff inside them, so they're not going to sound that different.
Yeah, I 100%. I think this reminds me, in the music, the guitar world, there's an obsession with like old vintage gear, and I think that translates over here to the Portastudios as well. And what you're just saying is like I've played Fender P basses from the 70s or even the 60s that were crap. You know, they were poorly maintained and needed some TLC. But like it's the same thing with these machines. You know, it's like what condition they're in, and yeah, it's an interesting. It's that vintage mindset can be a little bit of a what's the word I'm looking for? It can be I don't know, it could be a little self-misleading. You know, it's older, so it's better, or it's this, so it's better. And you have real hands-on experience.
It's like fetishism, right?
Right, that's the word.
I mean, I can see more justification for it in the arena of guitars, because I guess like every piece of wood is sort of individual. So I guess, like, you know, even if you're not comparing mahogany to maple necks, you're comparing to like maple necks, like there is going to be some qualitative difference to that, though. Like, you know, I think you have to have like magic ears like Eric Johnson to really hear it. But the bits and pieces inside a Portastudio are more fungible than that. They're more interchangeable. I mean, I think cassettes from different manufacturers definitely sound different, and different cassette types. You know, like Ferrican Type 2 tapes definitely sound really different. You know, even if you've had a machine with like the bias adjust, you know, it's going to. So it's things like that and how you record, and they're going to make a bigger difference than. Yeah, anyway, sorry, I've kind of run out of steam there, but I think you know what I mean.
No, I think no, I actually agree 100%. There are way more nuances on a piece of wood, for sure. And I was just thinking of it in the terms of there are also new guitars that are wonderfully made. But yeah, that's a little bit different. But you did say something I want to ask now. Do you have a favorite cassette brand or type?
No, not yet, because honestly, I haven't, like, you know, that's a rabbit hole that I haven't gone down. I have discovered that like Sony cassettes are really bad, or at least they work really badly with the way that the bias is set up out of the factory in Portastudios. Like they're just like really quiet. I've kind of
Well, that's important to know. What?
No, I mean, hopeless, you know, threw them out, like took the cassette out and like used the empty shells for testing purposes, like, you know, that bad. Where I am, you can get TDK CDing to cassettes pretty easily and pretty cheaply, so that's what I tend to get. They sound okay. I have had TDK SA and Maxell, was it the XL2s? And yeah, I would say they probably sound better, but I've not had them in such a new condition. So there's that thing as well, you know, like I mean, it's a crapshoot when you buy sealed tapes, even, because I've bought like, you know, 5 packs of the CDing 2s and 4 of them are fine and one of them's, you know, there's something up with it and there's dropouts and stuff. And so then you have to kind of bin that. But I suppose the SAs and the XL2s seem to be what other people in forums seem to think sound best. I've mainly had secondhand ones, you know, someone's used for their home stereo, and then I've recorded over it. So no, I'm not an expert on that, to be honest. That's all ahead of me.
Well,
you know, you may have a clearer idea of what's going on there than me. You know, a lot of people listening to this might have a clearer idea. It's just like, you know,
I've never played a Sony cassette, so I that's already informative, you know.
Yeah, I wish I knew, because I mean, it may be that they produced ones that work well, but it was definitely like Type 2 at Chrome Tape. But I bought a batch of them, and they were all. I don't think it was the way they were stored. I think the BIOS requirements were like just significantly different to the TDKs, and it just didn't work.
Well, then I'm curious. I mentioned to you, I was just listening to your Bandcamp track, Falling Behind, which people should go check out. Tetrakan Super Mono Block cassette.bandcamp.com. Do you remember what cassette you were using on that?
Yeah, that would be a TD. Yeah, CDing 2.
I'm looking at the details right now. I mean, it sounds really awesome. I really, really love, and I'm reading your description, and it was all like first takes.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I rattled through that. It was the first time, I mean, to date, it's the first time I've put my own music up there. And, I mean, I am a musician by background. And when I was, spending a lot of my time writing original music and everything, I definitely suffered from analysis paralysis and perfectionism and everything. So I wanted sort of as an exercise for myself to batter through that pretty quickly without second guessing myself too much. And there's some clanging mistakes in there, like the
but
the bass entry as it goes into that sort of instrumental middle H.
Yeah.
But it's, I mean, that's kind of the beauty of this medium. You can leave stuff in there and it sort of sounds like it's got character rather than it's like a shitstorm, which is how it sounds in a digital audio workstation. It's weird. Like it's a great apologizer for just being really sloppy somehow.
Well, the humanity cannot be removed, and that's the instinct today with modern music production is, to put things to a grid and line them up and quantize. And even I know rock producers who do that, and it's just like, man, you're killing the vibe. I don't know what you're doing. And then the tape forces you to just put that all out there. And for some, you said you had analysis paralysis, so I would imagine that's kind of a catharsis moment for you to be able to say, all right, there it is, all the mistakes.
Yeah. I mean, I felt pretty exposed uploading that, and I mean, you'll notice I haven't done any original music since then. I mean, I uploaded that about a year ago.
Well, I think you should, because I really
it's on the
genuinely
to-do list, but it's just I mean, like at the moment, I'm uploading like 3 times a week. And it's just to get through all the teardown videos. I mean, I'm trying to do it at the moment, so it's like a couple of teardowns during the week, and then something slightly more interesting. Because I figure, for people who are regular subscribers, there's only so many times you can watch me describe how to change a capstan belt. But I just haven't got around to it yet. I mean, one of the things that I may do with the channel actually is to go and look at my process using a digital audio workstation in the early 2000s and see the absolute madness of over editing that drove me to the more simplistic method of cassette. Because I mean, I was taking multiple takes and cross fading in one word, and I was doing all that
syllables
Metallica level shit, but with a Pentium 2 innuendo. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I was getting really interesting results with it, but I mean, really slowly with a lot of frustration. It's, I think, much nicer for the soul to be to have fewer options, to be forced to accept your mistakes.
I agree. I think that's why a lot of people in this community do enjoy the cassettes. I am curious. What was your starting instrument? What did you learn on? When?
Well, I am coming up for 43 years old. I started learning piano when I was 7. I mean, it wasn't super serious, it was scales and very simplified versions of Christmas songs and stuff like that. Little bit under duress from my parents, wasn't that interested, but got into rock and roll guitar, got into Hendrix and Nirvana and Soundgarden and, stuff like that as a teenager, and was really into guitar. So technically, piano was the one I started with, but then guitar, I think, is kind of my first instrument. I mean, it's I'm no Rusty Cooley, but I'm fairly fluent. Like in terms of like if I hear a melody in my head and it comes out of my hands pretty easy. I understand and can apply theory on that instrument in a way that I still can't on keys, although I still play quite a bit of keys. You know,
Yeah,
but
that's the typical. The piano lessons is a thing that parents often do for their kids. I hear you, and then you actually find the instrument that actually excites you, and you're lucky to have found it in the guitar. 'Cause some people just you hear these stories all the time, I'm sure, or people like, yeah, I wish I still played. Like they took piano lessons as little kids, and then they never did anything else, and then it was done. And it's like there's something about that can take the spark of joy out of music for a young child. It depends on your teacher, obviously. I don't know what kind of teacher you had. Sometimes they're amazing, but more often than not, they're mediocre, and sometimes they're terrible.
uh-huh. Um, to give my piano teacher credit, I think she recognised I had some sort of like basic aptitude for the ear training stuff, and so it definitely instilled a sense of confidence. Like this is something I'm relatively good at. So I might have been put off taking up the guitar. I mean, because initially I actually went to Guitar Institute when I was in my late teens, but initially I taught myself the guitar, and I wouldn't have had the confidence to do that without the piano teacher being somewhat supportive. On the other hand, I don't think it wasn't like practical musicianship or music that I was that interested in playing. So, yeah, mixed bag.
Yeah. But no, it's. I'm always very curious about this because I know that we're here doing tape stuff and Portastudio stuff. You have Portastudio Repair, but like, why are you into it in the first place? It's because you're a musician, and it's fascinating to hear how that started. What sparked your interest in music from the very beginning? It's a piano, but yeah.
Oh right,
Yeah,
that's the question to me.
I'm not
Right.
good at asking
Yeah,
the question. I say something and trail
no,
off.
no, that's okay. I mean,
Uh,
I'd like. I mean, my parents weren't musicians, but they were really into music. I mean, I grew up like hearing Sibelius and Beethoven, a lot of Bellini operas, and that was their kind of thing. But then I kind of got, I suppose, my entry into music where I got really passionate about it is like kind of grunge era. But from there, I kind of went via like Fugazi, Shellac, sort of like what would you call that? Post punk, American hardcore, like that kind of thing. But then from there, I went like a little bit more left field and really got into Naked City and extreme metal bands and like a lot of the sort of music that would get covered in the Wire magazine, like
mhm.
sort of avant-garde-ish stuff and. To this day, I'm like a huge King
Yeah.
Crimson and Mahavishnu Orchestra fan. So at some point on this channel, and I'm going to kind of record an album, and obviously, technically, I'm limited by my drum playing more than anything else. So it's not going to be like Mahavishnu Orchestra, King Crimson level stuff, but it's sort of an amalgam between that kind of hardcore rock music and that
Advanced, progressive, yeah.
like jazz fusion prog kind of stuff. And I want to kind of do that with the 388 and the 38 and the Portastudios, and I'll record that process on the channel. But I mean, when I'll get round to that, I don't know, because I'm still trying to create this like massive catalogue of teardowns and repair tips and stuff. But
Well, it'll if you have as much of an inkling to do that as you do with this catalog of repairs, I believe that this will happen. I want
maybe
this
the
to
repair
happen.
catalogue is just a form of procrastination. This is the thing.
Could be,
It's like
but it'll happen.
self-sabotaging myself out of my own musical ambitions.
Could be. You sometimes it's good to create a schedule for yourself if you can. Of yeah, I'm finding the same type of thing, even the limited stuff that I do on my channel. It's like the feeding the beast and then taking time away from something like creating music becomes like that thing that you're like, what am I doing?
Yeah, lots of plates to spin.
Yes. Yeah. And at the end of the day though, people are interested in you. They're invested in you. Obviously, and with the Tascam repairs, that's going to be forever content. That's evergreen content that people will be able to come back to. But like every time you drop something that's like more on the creative side, I think I notice it usually gets more traction.
It does, yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's kind of a funny balance for me. I mean, because obviously, like, I think maybe with like a cap on and like a corona mask on, like my head has been in my videos before, but like, this is probably a lot of people who have watched a lot of my repair videos first encounter with the horror of my face. And in a way, I've been trying to not be there. I've trying to just kind of like be this gentle narrative voice that's like guiding them through the anxiety of like
This wonderful
changing a
Scottish.
rubber belt.
Yeah.
But yeah, I suppose like people get used to my. Yeah, but you're right. I mean, the things that I've done where a little bit of my musical personality has come through have received more views overall. But I don't know if that's just because they're like so. It's a relief from the monotony of the teardown videos.
I'm not saying abandon one for the other, but I'm listening to the little amount of music that I have of yours. I'm here to I'm a motivational speaker right now. The world needs more.
Thank you for the pep talk. It's what I need. No, I would like it to be a kind of 50-50 balance eventually, because right now it's like 19 parts out of 20. It's just building up this kind of catalog of stuff, and then within that 20th, like a lot of that's still repair related rather than ta-da! Here's my creativity. Yeah. But yeah, it would be nice to progress into kind of doing more stuff like that.
Well, I believe you will. You will. This is motivation.
Yes. Thank you.
I kind of want to, before we totally close off, I'm curious about the time gap of you being a musician, getting into all the things you're into, and you mentioned you're, recorded in DAWs in the early 2000s. And like, at what point did you first even pick up? When did you realize that maybe the Portastudios were speaking to you?
Yeah, I've tried to chase that myself. That thing about advertising, like it hits you 5 times and then you buy. So I think the kind of like the call of Portastudios probably were kind of quite wide apart. I mean, my first recording experience was with a cassette multitrack. I think it was a Yamaha MT. I mean, I've used the joke before. It's the one that looks like it's Sauron from Lord of the Rings multitrack player. It's all like black grills. It's part of like Darth Vader's utility belt or something. So that's hit one. It's like the nostalgia for that process, because as a teenager, the borrowed school equipment, that was like the first thing I could do. I think, a point where, I was in a band that like ended, from my point of view, quite badly. And around the time that things were kind of beginning to kind of fall apart, I saw The Devil and Daniel Johnson. I think that's the title of the film. But, here's this guy, this kind of savant, basically with a dictaphone, in his garage with absolutely fuck all in the way of equipment, just churning out songs. That's like, and his his production method is
Mhm.
record the entire album again.
Oh,
That was his duplication process.
yeah.
So I found that pretty. The idea of that pretty liberating when I'd been in a situation where there was a bunch of guys putting, I was probably the biggest culprit of that, but putting a lot of pressure on each other to kind of produce this kind of masterwork in this like really detailed way. The idea that you could just like fuck off to a barn with a dictaphone and just make music, that was kind of appealing. I think. I mean, the reason I'm back, I was in Glasgow for a long time, and I came back here because I split up with a girl, and this was going to be a pit stop moving back in with my parents, and I knew that my dad was getting forgetful, but actually it turned out like he had like really advanced Alzheimer's, and well, it turned out to be Alzheimer's. He didn't have the diagnosis at that time, so he's passed away since. I'm living here with my mother, who's now 80 and got some problems of her own, and so I didn't really have any musical outlet. So it was very much like I didn't have access to all the kind of like the whole. I didn't have a drum kit at that point. I didn't, when I was in a band, like we had a rehearsal room that we were renting out to other bands, and we had like like I said, we were running on a Pentium 2. We had like 16 input digital interface, and we had a whole kind of cabinet of fairly cheap mics, but we had a cabinet. We had like 30 mics and all the cables and. I didn't really have the option of that anymore, and I was trying to kind of keep my own musical foot in the water, my own sort of sanity under quite difficult psychological and emotional circumstances. I got like really into like dicking around with pedals, different combinations of them. Trying to make entire tracks using just my guitar and pedals, and then I sort of wanted just like a canvas to put a simple canvas to put that on. So I think at that point it occurred to me, I thought back to the sorts of, because in a way that's what I was doing when I first borrowed the cassette player from my school when I was a teenager in whatever it was, 1994 or something. So I think at that point I was like, oh, maybe I should get a Portastudio and I can do this kind of Daniel Johnson like pedal maniac thing in my bedroom while I'm still living here with my parents. And so I think I started researching cassette players at that point, and then I stumbled on Brothers Nylon's YouTube channel at that point. So I mean, the first one of theirs I saw was Nick Sick and I'm Bored, and your man Ruffalo's like using the sends on the 244 to do this kind of reggae thing with something he pre-recorded, and I was like, oh right, I mean that's pretty much why I got into 244s, and that was the model that I was specialising in for a long time, and it's where I got such electronic and repair chops as I have by flipping. I must have refurbished like 100 244s at this point. So yeah, it was just kind of spread out. Sort of circumstantial things. I ended up doing this. It's kind of weird. It's pretty unplanned.
Well, I mean, I really appreciate you sharing, that about. I think anyone listening would be able to relate in some way, and it's kind of it makes a lot of sense hearing what you just said, and definitely appreciate you sharing that, and also being inspired by the Brothers Nylon. I mean, those guys are prolific.
Yeah, I mean they're an inspiration. They're a terrifying inspiration. I mean, like at a push, if I got busy really early, like I could have sons that age, and they've written more music last week than I've written in my entire life, and I, I, I love them for it. I'm pretty jealous, but in a nice way.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, just like the amount.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I mean, I really like what they're doing. I mean, I suppose my taste being what it is, like the stuff that they do where it's more like soft machines, Frank Zappa end of what they're doing is the part that speaks to me most, because that's where my tastes lie. But I mean, there's
they have a
no,
wide
it's all
gamut.
killer, no filler, really.
Yeah, I know.
In fact, it's like, being a couple of songs a year for at least, well, I mean, how long have I been tuned into what they're doing? Pretty much the same amount of time that I've been involved in Portastudios, pretty much. So whatever that is, 5-6 years.
Yep. If anyone doesn't know who we're talking about, Brothers Nylon. Gotta check out their YouTube
Yeah,
channel.
go subscribe to
Yeah.
it. For such a long time, it was like really difficult to describe them to anyone because they had so many names. Like, because for a long time, like Brothers Nylon was like the Sean Lee collaborations.
Right.
So I'd be playing this stuff to people and trying to explain, it's these twin brothers, like they're really, obviously I'm speaking to other people my age, so I don't mean to patronize them. I'm like, yeah, they're really young and they put out like 3 songs a week and have done for years. And it's like, right, oh, cool, what's the band called? I'm like, I don't know. Is it Renegade 3? Is it Lexical Galaxy? I don't, and just the
They don't know.
It always cracked me up the fact that they didn't even use like the description box in the videos, like no information. You're just left to kind of piece it together by watching dozens and dozens of their videos.
Yeah, there's definitely a little bit of like Daniel Johnston energy in them for sure.
Yeah, the musical savants. Yeah, except there's 2 of them.
Yeah.
It's like if Daniel Johnson had A, a twin, and B, a lot more chops. A lot more.
Yes. Okay. The last thing before I wrap it up, because I know you're at least the admin in that Facebook group, right?
I am a admin.
So you're not the founder of that group at all?
No.
Okay.
No, I mean,
it's one of the only reasons I check Facebook.
Probably fair to say I'm
days.
like the most active admin and have been for a couple of years now. Like the guy who set that group up initially is really interesting. Right, I'm like, his surname's Italian, so I'm probably going to slaughter it. So Gabriel, if you're watching this, I apologize. His name's Gabriel Riacci. I don't know.
I think you nailed it.
When you publish this video, I'll put I'll find a link to the stuff he's doing. But like, I don't know whether he's keeping his cards close to his chest. It seems possible to me that he maybe knows more about all this repair stuff than I do, because certainly he's doing like some crazy stuff with the Commodore C64 and getting that to speak to other instruments. Like, it's really interesting. But I think that group is about 7 years old, and I joined it about 3 years ago. And at the point I joined, it was like, it had like 400 members. At the time we're speaking, it's what, like 7,000 or something, and it's grown very,
something like that. Even since I joined.
Yeah, well, I mean, COVID's accelerated that process a great deal. So I mean, I think at a point, just life circumstances, like I think he was going to be moving and job and family, yada yada yada. He was like, all right, I can't really keep on top of the admin stuff. Can I get some more admins? And I was one of the people who said, yeah, I'll do it. But a lot of the people said, yeah, I'll do it. We haven't really heard from them since. So you will occasionally see, I think Gabriel still goes in there and comments and stuff. This guy, David Wildsmith, I hope, David, sorry if you're actually Trevor Bingley and I just completely forgotten your name, even though we have corresponded. But yeah, I mean, there's like 3 of us who are kind of active, but I mean, there's actually like another 5 or 6 people who are admins there. But no, it's not my group. I just want to make that clear.
Well, yeah, no. I mean, it's one of the only reasons I check Facebook these days, because Facebook has gotten so kind of, you just open it up and it's like your Aunt Angela is posting memes about gay Russian frogs or something, and you're like, all right. But at least I can go check the Portastudio group and
social media in general kind of like triggers my anxiety. I did kind of have a think about whether it would be good for the reach of what I'm doing on YouTube to be on Instagram and stuff like that, and I can't really deal with it. I've got Facebook set up, so I mainly see that group, and I also like see cute cat videos and find out when such and such a band's got a new album. But like, that group's nice because there's not a lot of shit posting or arguments in it. Largely because I throw people out as they start doing that. I'm a benevolent dictator.
You don't need, my advice is you don't need to be on all the platforms all at once. I think and YouTube, one of the benefits of YouTube is, like it or hate it or whatever you think about our overlords at Google and stuff. It's owned by Google, and it is the second most used search engine. And having your stuff on YouTube and being consistent can be a way to generate an audience. And if you later down the road want to do other platforms, then that's fine. But I find with my peers, some people get caught in this situation where they're trying to do all the platforms all at once on a project that's brand new. And it's like, man, that is an overwhelming amount of work. You're already doing hard work just making these videos. And then to just like be juggling 8 social media, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Snap, whatever. It's just like becomes way too much, and that's not even how our favorite, if you like an artist who's pretty popular, it's not like the artist is sitting there on all their platforms. They have people doing this for them.
Yeah. No, I figured I would just like trying to concentrate on trying to put this stuff out pretty regularly and let it go at its own pace. I'm pretty surprised that it's got as well. I don't know. I suppose I'm not. I mean, like I was saying earlier, I'm surprised that someone else hadn't done it before. So I suppose, there must be people searching all the time for, my Portastudio's not working, and then they find my videos. But I mean, like I was going to just do a short series of maybe like 20 videos on the 244. And then leave it there, but I don't know. I got kind of obsessed with. I've repaired the 464 a few times, so I should put that up. And then that moved into there's a 488 on eBay. It'd be interesting to see what that one's like. And it's just a sickness. Like I personally own like 35 different Portastudios.
I forgot to ask. That's a good question. So I'm glad you answered. 35 Portastudios.
Yeah. It's like, I didn't pay. I picked my moment. Like I bought them cheap, and poorly,
and they were broken, and you had to fix them.
Yeah. And I've bought them with the idea. All right, when I fix this, I'll film it, and then that's content for the channel, and then I'll sell it on. So eventually the herd will thin, and I'll maybe have like half a dozen of them.
Yeah, do you have a favorite amongst the 35, or it's the 244? You were saying, right?
Well, I'm fond of that one just because I learned on it. I bought it because it was in that Brothers Nylon video, and because this Mike Z fella, still don't know who he is really, but that was the only visual resource on how to fix one. So those two stars aligned, if you like, and they were going cheap in the UK. You could buy them. They're like £200 for a broken one now, but at the time they were like 40 quid, 50 quid. The 246 is just like a lot more flexible. It does what the 244 does, but then it's got all the flexibility that you're used to with the mixer on your Porta 2.
Yeah.
So I suppose that is my favorite. I like the 464 and the 44 Mark III, the blend of features. Again, you've got like separate mixer channels that you can send stereo effects returns back on, that kind of thing. The original 424 though as well, just because it's got that third tape speed. it's got like a quarter tape speed.
Right.
So, if you want texture,
Yeah.
and it's got a relatively small footprint, because I do dick around with quite a lot of these, like, noise box sort of thing. Like, I've got quite a lot of Volcas and pocket operators and those kind of things. So if you've just got like a desk, something like the 44 is nice because you've got room for all your other stupid noise gadgets there as well.
Stupid noise gadgets and Portastudios go hand in hand. And all right, now before I close out, just one last question. If you had any advice for someone who's never been into this at all, Portastudios, do you have any recommendations? So let's say it's a kid. Hey, I think I'm interested. What do I need to know, or what should I get? Oh, are you still there? Oh.
I guess there's like quite a few people in this niche, if you like, who can give pretty good advice about the creative side of owning a 4-track for the first time. So I'll make my advice more about acquiring one and maintaining one. There are bargains out there. You'll see people on the internet saying how they got such and such a unit for like $10. They changed the belt and then it worked forever. If you end up in that position, I'm happy for you, but I wouldn't bet on it. It's more likely you're going to have to spend a bit of money to acquire it, and it's probably something like owning a classic car, right? Like, if you don't have the wallet and the mechanic that who's going to fix it for you, if you want to keep it relatively cheap and be relatively sure that it's going to keep on working, you're probably going to need to get your hands dirty and learn something about the repair process. So to that end, what I would suggest that people do is, you're not always going to be able to pick and choose which model you get, but try and find a model that has the features that are going to work with what you're doing musically, and a model that comes up quite often wherever you're going to buy it, Craigslist, eBay. And I would say buy 2 or maybe 3 broken down ones, and try and fix 2 of them and keep one as a spares unit. So maybe you sell one of them to recoup some of your costs. Maybe you sell the spares one as well to someone else who needs some parts. But the likelihood, if you have 3 faulty ones, of being able to, with a minimum of soldering or just mainly using like screwdriver and unplugging things, you're going to be able to assemble sort of a Frankenstein monster from the best parts of all 3 units that is going to work pretty well, hopefully. So check out my channel. There's a good chance that if I don't already have videos up on the model that you're looking at buying, I will do in the future. And, hopefully we as a community can keep these things working for many years to come.
There you have it. I've never met him. He's a super cool guy, very easy to talk to. I think he's doing the Lord's work, putting out all these repairs and really taking them apart so that we can have them as a reference. And I really do sincerely hope he continues to put out more creative music, because I genuinely, really, truly enjoy everything that I've heard from him so far. That would be, you should go to Tetrakan supermonoblock.bandcamp.com and you can hear some of his original music. And for me, you know where my stuff is. It's all up here in the corner. The Patreon is down in the description, and Bandcamp and all that stuff. You're here, you've made it this long, you probably know who I am. That means you've been watching this video for about 60 minutes. So kudos to you. I really appreciate you for being here. And with that, as always, is peace, and be good to each other.